I'd call the vet.
Oh my goodness. Oh, well. I'm just going to add it in so that just in case she says it's okay, I'm just going to say, so, hi, how are you? We were just texting with our other co-host and she just talk about chaos. She's like, I can't make it. I just ran in the house with the kids and everyone's fed, but I need a minute to breathe. And she's like, I'll be a little bit late. I'm like, no worries. Cause Tracy might be a smidge late too. And then she just texted, she's like, I'm not coming. My dog ate the drone ate the drone and the battery. She's like, I have to call the fire department. So I was like,
Well, it burned the carpet, right?
yeah,
Isn't that
burn
what
the
you said?
carpet. Yeah. So I was
to call the vet first.
yeah. Like
the drone battery.
Like,
Wow.
I don't know. So
Oh my
anyways, hi, Tracy. How are you?
I am good, but I feel so bad for the dog and them too, because gosh, having pet chaos is not good.
I mean, dogs are like they're like sometimes better.
children.
They're like better than kids because you can't
Well,
really
they listen better.
sometimes, and you can kennel them. You can't really kennel your kids. It's kind of like frowned upon, but also like they're kind of a pain in the ass sometimes, like dogs can be kind of like they eat stuff that they shouldn't be eating. So, anyways, I did have a dog once that like got into my laundry basket and I was like, yeah, later discovered what this dog decided that it was, ate my underwear. And I was like, are you serious right now? Like, thanks. Thank you, dog.
Wow. Gives a whole new meaning to edible undies, right?
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
They weren't like actual edible. Tracy,
but they were to the dog that day.
Right, exactly. I mean, I have some other dog chaos stories I won't share with you because that might be a little TMI, but I can tell you later. We'll save it for later. But I'm so glad that you're here, Tracy. And we're excited that you accepted our invitation to come on. And I honestly have to tell you, I stumbled upon your podcast and your YouTube channel. And I was like, wow. I'm like, calming the chaos, like keeping up with chaos, calming the chaos. Like, this could be a pretty cool conversation. I think we could have some fun here, So I was happy that you accepted our invitation.
Yeah. And I love your podcast too. It's just really super chill. And you have a lot of really cool guests on.
Thank you. And you're now one of them. So we're happy that you're here. Cheers.
I can be a cool guest. Be a cool guest. Yes. Oh, cheers. Yes. Well,
cheers. Coffee, tea, wine.
Yeah, this is my wine. I brought it in a kind of a shaker cup. So there we go.
I love it. That's like a great transporting device, right?
Very solid, right? It cannot dribble out this way.
Exactly.
That's the important thing.
That is
unless it's dribbling out into your mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Too funny. I was gonna talk to you guys a little bit about what happened earlier this week, which will be a little bit from when we actually launched the podcast, but I feel like nobody's gonna forget it because it was kind of like, holy crap. Did that just happen to everybody? Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, the WhatsApp app, or I think it's a WhatsApp,
WhatsApp,
all gone off the face of the internet. Just ghosted out all of it. And I don't know about you guys, but I was literally I do marketing for the podcast. Obviously. I mean, it's not my bread and butter to be on these sites, but it's definitely a marketing part of our marketing for podcasting and stuff. And so I was like, why is my stuff not going through? And I call myself a baby grandma because technology is not my style. It's not my thing. I'm like, tink, 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 tink. It's not going through. And then lo and behold, everything was gone and it was not me. So what do you guys, anybody else chaos?
I didn't even notice until I started getting the news feeds or the notifications from Fox News and whatever else was popped up on my phone about everything being down. It's like, oh, okay.
Wow.
I didn't even notice because we were just talking about that.
Yeah, you're not on social media, but Tracy, I mean, you have to have noticed. I mean, for sure.
Well, yeah. And especially because Mondays are marketing Mondays, and a lot of my groups that I belong to that I'm posting my podcast episodes in, they have marketing Mondays. And I had just gotten done posting all of my notifications of the podcast interview I had done and went to a class, an online class. And then I went back onto Facebook and it's it says it was gone. And I thought, oh, that must be something that I did. And I actually had a podcast interview through StreamYard that day, and StreamYard was kind of not working either. And I was just like, oh my God, what is going on? I was thinking, did the whole internet go? like away.
Right. And then how are we going to like, I had a panic moment for a second because I was like, I didn't really know what to, like at first I thought it was my fault. Then I thought it was me. It was my internet connection. I thought it was like me being a baby grandma. I didn't know like if it was like my technology, like I did something. And then when I realized that it was all gone, I was like, holy crap. And then I actually started thinking about the other people that this is like their livelihood and how much chaos that's caused, creating in their lives where they literally, their business is on Instagram, Facebook. I mean, people stay connected with international like family and friends and clients through the WhatsApp. I was just like, holy, pardon my French, shit. I mean, honestly.
Without the pardon my French in there, right? Just,
Mhm.
well, I didn't go that far down the rabbit hole, but I think that shows what kind of a person you are, that you are considerate of like, how is this affecting other people for the people who are actually making their living doing it? Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. I mean,
You know what?
that would have caused like a lot of chaos and like heart palpitations. And like, I mean, I would have probably freaked out. I will honestly tell you, for me personally, it was a little bit of a breath of fresh air for me because I sometimes feel stressed of like how like, the keeping up with everybody, the Joneses on social media, in terms of like the podcasting world or just like, curating and, creating content and stuff like that. So it's kind of a breath of fresh air. So I was like, ooh, I don't have to do anything today. And when it came back up the next day, I was like, damn, okay. It was kind of like, it was kind of like a snow day. Like you get one snow day and then you have to go back to
Sleep in.
school the next day. Yeah. I was like kicking
Right.
it back. I was like, this is beautiful. What were we going to say, Nikki? I'm sorry.
I was going to say the first thing that came to my mind when I heard about that was the fact that it was just kind of ironic that it happened on the same day that they're like kind of in the hot seat right now, because they're
Little
on
bit.
the news, they're all over the news talking about the algorithms and how things kind of play out and how they affect teenagers and
Yeah.
whatnot. So they're like kind of in the hot seat. So I thought it was kind of strange that all this occurred on the same day that they're like, yeah.
You
So I
never
thought that was
know.
kind of crazy.
Yeah, that is a little bit like chaotic.
Have you two been keeping up with it's congressional, right? This whistleblower is testifying, or they're trying to get some information. I haven't been keeping up on it.
I just hear about it when I'm listening to the news in the morning. I mean, I kind of have one ear on it and then one ear, on my number two. So it's like, it was a former employee. I know, that she was kind of
like an insider
spilling the beans. Yeah.
I have to tell you, like, that's kind of, so leading into this conversation where I kind of was listening to, I was actually listening to your podcast, and I've been listening and kind of following you around because I know that you've been a guest on a couple different podcasts. So Calming the Chaos podcast, I think it's excellent. I love the name. I'm so happy that you're here. And like, I was listening to when you were describing chaos, right? The definition of chaos, and when you were talking about that, I was thinking, wow, like when we created Keeping Up with Chaos, you made me realize that Nikki is like, she's drawn to real chaos, right? Like, so she's listening to the news and she's got a police scanner,
It's like the excitement.
She loves like true crime, right? And then me, I'm kind of butterflies and rainbows and sunshine, but I'm like, I find chaos all around me, like random chaos, like what you would describe as perceived chaos. So let's like air this out, because I want everyone to know, like, you have like a list of credentials, like a laundry list of credentials. So share with me and Nikki and everyone else that's listening, like kind of like why did you start a podcast? And like, yeah. And like, you have this laundry list of credentials. So share with us,
I know they call it alphabet soup. And
yeah.
So I'm a licensed mental health counselor in Olympia, Washington, and I'm at the point in my career where I was getting way more work than I can handle. And so this happened in 2017, that I looked at my structure of my business, and I consulted with some colleagues. And I tried a bunch of different things just to try and handle the flow, because it was just me. So I tried to hire some people, and each one of them found a really great full-time job afterwards. So that didn't work out. And then I finally talked to a colleague of mine who was interested in starting a podcast. And I said, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to start a podcast. Let's learn together. And we both did. And we took a class. It's called the Healthcasters course. And the guy who teaches it is a psychologist. And he works specifically with those in the helping professions or the healthcasters. And he helps them to launch a podcast. So I took his course and I thought, all right, I'm just going to put a podcast out there with the information. And so when people contact me now, I don't really have to give them any other referral unless they ask for one, because I couldn't take any more clients. I'm just bursting at the seams, but I can refer them to my podcast that has information. So, and I thought that, what am I going to do? Like, what is the universal concern that comes up with all my clients? And what came up is overwhelm and being caught off balance, having too much, anything that is not order, like it is disorder.
Yeah.
And
chaos.
Chaos meaning random, chaos meaning like coming out of the blue, not orderly, confusion, thrown off balance. And I thought, that's going to be the universal concern that I focus on in a podcast. And that I thought would help more people. And I've been able to really diversify the topics. So I did do one.
Yeah.
I'm a certified eating disorder specialist. I did do one on eating disorder, a couple of ones on eating disorders. There was one on ADHD. There was some on COVID. So really being that general umbrella, I've been able to expand on all kinds of different chaos topics. So it's been a fun journey. I just love being able to get in front of the camera. I do a video podcast and also it's on audio, but I love being able to get in front of the camera and have that human face so people can look at the person who's actually talking. I think that's really important for people who like therapy and really want that human connection. So I thought that was really good to be able to offer. And so far, all my guests have been willing to be on video, which was kind of really, really cool. And just been meeting a whole lot of really great people through the process. So that's the short elevator speech about me. My alphabet soup is, so LMHC is licensed mental health counselor. CRC is a certified rehabilitation counselor. CEDS is certified eating disorder specialist. And ACHT is advanced clinical hypnotherapist. So I actually do hypnotherapy. And in fact, I'm hypnotizing you right now. You are now under my power. You are now. No,
I know, I'm so zoned. I'm
so sorry.
On yeah.
I mean, I can't even, I'm really sorry to interrupt everything, but like, I cannot believe like my kids literally came in. They knew we were podcasting. They let the dog in underneath you can hear her snoring underneath my desk. They're fighting. I was like, everyone is going to be grounded if you don't.
Love that.
If you guys interrupt me one more time, I know this is probably your jam right now because you're like,
I was being hypnotized and you just totally interrupted.
I'm so sorry.
Yes. May I put you back under my spell?
I know, like I'm literally like, just like kind of, honed in on every word that you're saying. So it was kind of like, I believe that.
Yeah.
So were you talking about hypnotherapy? Is that what you're talking about?
She was just going through the alphabet soup.
Yeah, alphabet soup being ACHT is advanced clinical hypnotherapist. And I was like, wow, she must not like hypnotherapy because as soon as I mentioned it, she went out of the room. She probably thinks I'm going to make her cluck like a chicken or bark like a dog. But I guess there was
Can you do that? Like, can you actually do that?
Could you?
No, I can't even help your dog stop snoring or whatever he was doing under the radar there. But yeah, you can't hypnotize anybody to do anything they wouldn't normally do. So that's the long and the short of it. So yeah. Okay. So if there's a person who's really wanting attention and will do anything for attention, and you get them up on stage and you hypnotize them and say, I now want you to bark like a dog. And they go, ruff, 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 ruff. They would have done that anyway. I didn't have to hypnotize them to do that. They would have done it anyway.
I think I've heard that before. I was surprised. I didn't realize that you were a hypnotherapist as well. Like I knew you were in mental health and I knew that you were certified mental health counselor and in the eating disorder realm, but I didn't know until I started listening to some of your podcasts that you were also in hypnotherapy. So I find that fascinating and it definitely like a curious and like cool level to like your alphabet soup of all your certifications. So what is chaos? Like when you like define chaos, because I know you can define it for us. And, like a lot of people are like, oh, I know what chaos is. Like, it's my life. But like, there's different levels of chaos. Like I think Nikki and I go back and about this a lot. Like she's like, that's not chaotic enough for me. And I'm like, it's chaos. It's still chaos. It's all chaos.
Yeah, anything that causes a disruption, just a random disruption. It can even be something as simple as the power going out, or say you're sleeping in your bed and then you wake up and there is no power. I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but your whole morning routine is disrupted because you don't have power and you have to figure out. So there's the spinning of the mind, figuring out like, how do I sort this out? Because this is not the order that I'm used to.
Right.
So when we talk about the normal order of traffic, if we're going down the road and all of a sudden we're hit with a torrential downpour of rain and our windshield wipers aren't working really well, like this is us having to adjust to something that is happening out of order, random, confusing. That's what I like to think of as chaos, and like the proverbial, chicken with the head cut off. Like, what am I doing? Am I just going from thought to thought, from place to place, or am I actually getting centered and grounded and figuring out what am I going to do next? Usually it's me. For me, I'm the chicken. I am that chicken with no head.
Right.
I don't know about you two.
Yeah, no, it's like everyday chaos for me constantly. Like I feel like I'm in like this, like I'm in the washing machine of chaos. Like I just have, it's like I just operate at a level of chaos constantly. I'm a boy mom, I'm a dog mom, and like I have a man babe that I'm raising as well as like a child. So like he wasn't fully raised apparently, so I have to raise him too. And so it's like it's just constant chaos, and it's like, and that's kind of like my thing. I always bring in the man babe chaos or the kid chaos, and I try to share, to normalize, but also to like, I don't know, just lighten the load, because everybody's got it. Everybody gets in their car. The other day I was telling Nikki, we went to go to school and there was a car accident, and down here, whether it's a really bad one or not, like a minor one, the traffic backs up for days. So I couldn't even get out of my neighborhood, so I just turned right back around, and the kids went tardy because I was like, I'm not sitting in traffic for God knows how long just to get a mile down the road. And you're talking about getting up in the middle of the night or getting up and like not having any power. Just last night, I got woken up in the middle of the night because I thought I heard what I thought was like fluttering of wings. Okay. So I was like, what in the hell is going on in my bedroom? And my number 3 had, snuck into bed and was sleeping in between my husband and I. So I got scared. I froze because I was like trying to figure out what it was. And then I got scared. I couldn't figure it out. And so I woke up my husband and he's mad at me. And then I woke up the middle because he's mad at me and we're bickering. And then it happens again. And then, we couldn't figure out what was going on. And we later figured out what would happen. So I had bought new clothes that had like sheets of like tissue paper between the clothes. So I had piled the tissue paper, but the above vent that you can see blowing behind Nikki, I had the same vent in my house, must have like started blowing the tissue paper. I mean, like at 1 o'clock in the morning, like all of a sudden, like you decide to flutter like a bird.
That must be distracting you, because that's the second time you brought it up.
It is a little distracting.
It's the fan.
Oh
I'm not turning it off.
So
yeah, is that a green screen behind you?
It is.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
Is. I have to take pictures of somebody on Saturday, and I bought a green screen just in case it rained, and the beach scene kind of got screwed up. So
yeah,
I figured that maybe we can experiment with that, but I'm by no means a professional. I'm just doing it. She's my guinea pig, this girl. So
that's pretty
I like
cool,
that.
though.
They have that YouTube channel called Owl Cat, if you're into cats at all, but they have a bunch of parodies that they do for like Home Alone and stuff. And they have this black cat that they use. And the cat is acting out these scenes in like Home Alone and some other sorts of, I think Star Wars was one of them. Anyway, they do all of their work with this cat using a green screen. And they actually show at the end of the video, they show like the making of, there's so many cool things that you can do with a green screen. And I have one, but I haven't actually used it to the extent I really wanted to do that with my cats. I'm like, yeah, let me go. And it's like, no, I'm not doing that yet. Cause I don't even know how to work.
I don't know
that,
how either. I'm
thing.
relying heavily on my number one. So
Yeah.
she's a little more tech savvy than I am. And she has, I think, Adobe, there's an Adobe program where she can manipulate things. So I'm like relying heavily on her to make this work because I have no idea what the hell I'm doing.
And everything takes like a minute to like figure out too. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like when it comes to technology or learning something new, it's like, if it's not easy and it's going to take a minute, I'm always looking for somebody else to figure out how to do it for me. Like, you're number one, you know, and help me figure it out, to like carve out some time, some extra time, or I'm like, it takes me forever to figure it out. So, I was going to say, so do you think, I was going to say that, speaking of chaos, like I feel like chaos is like universal, right? Like, because I think you were touching on that a little bit, because you were saying like in the beginning, the reason why you decided to like go with calming the chaos is that like everybody's got it, right? And little bits of chaos every day, or big pieces of chaos, right? So yeah, so like let's like talk about that a little bit, and like what are some things that we could do, you know, for our little pieces of chaos and like maybe big pieces of chaos, you know?
Well, so Nikki, you said Nikki struggles with like actual, like real chaos. Like, do you live in a flood zone, or like get hurricanes and all that stuff?
No, I'm just looking for like I'm not looking for it, but it excites me. You know what I mean? Like not having it myself, but like kind of, you know, knowing about it, you know, like the news or like interesting stories or true crime. Not that I'm wanting it to happen, and not that I'm, you know, hoping it happens on, you know, to anybody else, but it just kind of, it's kind of interesting to me. So I don't know if that makes me a psychopath or
no,
what. I
you
don't know.
gravitate
I don't know.
towards it. I think you gravitate towards it, maybe to like, I don't know. I mean,
maybe it's just a distraction from my own chaos. It draws my attention, and I have ADD. So it's like, there's 20 different things going on in my brain at any given time. And I was going to ask you about that, because I feel like there's like I can never solve one problem because there's like 20 of them going on. And it's like I jump from thing to thing. So I feel like maybe your ADD patients or ADHD patients are probably maybe the worst or the most difficult. I don't know.
Oh man, yeah. Okay, so you're one of the people that kind of seeks out chaos because because it is interesting. Because if you think about it, what we have is, if we have structure and we have order, it's predictable, and after a time it sort of gets boring. So yeah, I think a lot of people are seeking that stuff out, and especially since it's available out there in Facebook or YouTube.
Right.
And I also really like true crime, and got involved with the true crime community on YouTube. Oh my gosh, what a lot of chaos that is. If you're involved in that in any way, we got to have a conversation like aside from this podcast, because
really
there's some interesting stuff going on in there. But yeah, so if you're seeking it out, then it seems like you want it in your life, and that might not be a problem. I am a big fan of not making a problem where there's not a problem. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want the problem. I'm just, and I don't know if it has anything to do with like me being, you know, curious by nature. Like I like to figure stuff out. So I don't know if that's has anything to do with it. Like I kind of like to solve things. I don't know.
Yeah, that
I'm
might
just
be
guessing.
your way.
I don't know. Maybe I need a diagnosis or something. Maybe I need professional help so that they can diagnose
Can't
me.
do that.
I know. Well, I was gonna say, but Tracy, but that's kind of like your thing though. Like your thing is to help people figure out that like you can have painful and confusing things, that like you talked about being overwhelmed, you know, and you can take situations and develop, I think I wrote this down, develop a plan to live peacefully and have a meaningful life outside of your chaos, right? Whatever your chaos is.
Absolutely.
So let's like talk about that for a minute, you know, because regardless of what kind of chaos you're drawn to or have, you know, there's ways of maybe not fixing it, but right, there's ways to, I don't know, calm it.
Well, and you'll never stop it. But what you can be in charge of is your reaction toward it, and how you handle it. And I'm telling you, if you really start to practice it, it becomes empowering when you're like, holy shit, did I just go through that situation and handle it well? Wow, that was amazing. Now, all of your experiences aren't going to be that way, but when they are, it's pure gold. And it's like, wow, I feel very empowered doing it. But the first thing that people need to remember is that they have the power to be able to manage these situations that come and they throw them off balance. The first step, I think, in my opinion, is to just first off notice that you're thrown off balance. Sometimes people don't even know and are able to name that, like, oh, I'm obviously something just happened. Obviously, I'm being thrown off balance. That is the very first thing that anybody needs to do to manage any kind of chaos, in my opinion.
So like be aware or like be mindful. Like I feel like that's like a big, like keyword these days, like being aware, being mindful, like
Right.
recognizing like I'm in some fucking chaos. Like, like
Right.
shoot,
Right.
like, and then so like what would you do if you're aware of it, what do you tell your clients, or what kind of suggestions or tips do you give,
Mhm.
people if they are aware of that they're in the chaos, whatever it is?
When you were saying that, usually I get visual pictures when people are talking, and this one came to me, and I don't know where it came from, but anyway, I'm just going to roll with it. It is, I am eating outside and it's a lovely day, and I'm having this great conversation with my two new friends, Nikki and Jocelyn. And all of a sudden this bee starts buzzing around me. You know how that happens when you're
Yeah.
outside and you're eating and this bee comes around, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is so annoying. It's just taking me away from the structure that I have of eating and enjoying my time. When I'm aware of, oh, I'm feeling very frustrated at this bee, because this bee is ruining my chi. It's ruining my
Right.
Zen moment that I'm supposed to have with my two new friends, right?
Right.
And that is when you just are able to say, all right, well, what is it that I can do in the situation? So that, I guess, would be step 2, is after you notice it, what can you do? And what I would say is, what is it that you can depend on? Like what is actually still staying the same? Like, is your food actually staying the same? Is your plate still on the table? Are your feet on the ground?
Right.
And get connected with the things that are stable, because something is throwing you off balance, and it can be as small as a bee. But my mind is making it into this huge thing to where it's like, this is ruining everything, and this is awful, and I can't eat because this thing is buzzing around me and it's ruining my good time.
Kind of like my dog snoring underneath me.
Yeah, no, that
can you
there you
hear
go.
her snoring? She's like literally like
Right. Okay. So then this is a great teaching moment right now
Sure.
for Jocelyn.
Yeah.
So what can you hook onto that is stable, that is actually going according to plan? I guess maybe we could have you list those things.
Like around me, like maybe get present with like my environment. Like I guess like,
like your internet connection is stable.
yeah,
Like
maybe
maybe
I have my cocktail, I've got my Himalayan salt crystal, like, yeah. I'm not
your lights
my
are still
lights are-
shining.
mhm.
Mhm.
Internet's still going, my phone's
Yes.
still blowing up with texts as we're talking, but that's chaos. So let's refocus.
Oh, good
I'm
noticing.
looking at pictures of my kids and my husband and my favorite people on my wall behind me. So yeah.
Yes.
And your hair looks really great. Like I love I love like seeing other people with like long pretty hair too, because it's like we should have a club or something.
Oh, the long pretty hair club. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
no,
It's
I don't know.
The Mermaid
yes.
Hair Club.
The mermaid hair
The
club.
mermaid hair club.
Yeah, we definitely could do that. Well, yeah. So did that actually take your mind away from the fact that your dog was snoring, as you were kind of hooking into these things in your environment that you can depend on and aren't changing?
Yes, it did actually, but she's back to snoring. So I'm back to thinking that she's snoring too loud. And yeah, but
It's a process. It's a process
totally is a
to
process.
Mhm.
Sorry,
to
go ahead.
continue noticing that I'm thrown off balance from the snoring. Now, I had that an experience with that podcast I did when the internet went out, and well, it wasn't the internet because we were connected. It's just StreamYard was not connecting and going live, which is the way that my podcast records, right? And then after we got it to start to record, there was a dude outside my window with one of those little leaf blowers.
Oh, geez.
So I had to keep, muting my mic, so I was doing this, being really discreet, trying to be discreet anyway. But it kept throwing me off, like everything was throwing me off balance. And it ended up working out great because the person I was talking to was talking about using anxiety as your superpower. And so I was getting all this good information and we were using my real-time experiences to sort of talk that out.
Yeah.
So it's a continuous process of, I'm irritated because I'm being thrown off balance. Oh, that's right. Let's refocus. And it's just over and over and over again, exercising that mind muscle, as I say.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I think that that's kind of what we're about. Like we are trying to sneak away and hang out and have some time, and we have interesting conversations with different types of people or just us. And sometimes there's kids or husbands or dogs or whatever is happening. And like that's life, right? Like life can be chaotic. That's why when I said earlier, like life is life is universal, but chaos is universal because it could be little everyday nuances or things that just happen that are irritating, like a bee at a restaurant when you're trying to have lunch with your friends, or a dog snoring underneath you when you're trying to podcast, or a leaf blower outside the window when you're trying to podcast, or just little tiny things. And I don't know, I feel like you said it's how you look at it. Like, so you find like maybe becoming more present in like where your body's at and like the things that are around you is a helpful tip.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. You
Why?
do need
Why
to
is
get,
that?
because what you're so that's part of the first part of grounding is just to understand that things still are stable, because sometimes what the mind says is that everything is unstable. And that's the trick that your mind plays on you when one thing or even a couple of things are unstable, is that everything is unstable because it goes to that extreme. So what you do is you remind yourself that there are some things that are stable. And then you go into, oh, I have this, I have this. You start to feel a little bit like you were feeling when you started to zero in on your environment. You start to feel a little bit more stable, and then you can start to implement some relaxation, like calming the actual physiology of the body, because the body is activated. It is in fight or flight mode, likely, or freeze. Sometimes people will freeze when they're hit with a chaotic event. They will just sit there and just not know what to do.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you,
So-
either of you, have a preferable like fight, flight, or what do you typically do when chaos hits you?
I mean, it depends on I have chaos coming at me like nonstop. So like I have a talk therapist and she talks about me being in the red zone all the time. I basically labeled it the red zone, like the magenta zone or whatever. But I mean, any given time, there's usually chaos that I'm managing. I call myself the chaos coordinator. I'm like the managing of all the chaos, like when it comes to the podcast and all my people. So sometimes it depends. Like I will share a very personal moment with you guys today. And because you asked, and this is what we do. I'll be real with you guys. I was fine. I picked up the kids. I was running a couple minutes later, no big deal. Got in the car line, got the kids. It's podcast night. My middle wanted to go get Culver's. And so I wanted to surprise them when I picked him up and say, we're gonna go get Culver's. So we went to go get Culver's. Well, my number 3 didn't go to the bathroom at school, held it the whole day, was about to pee his pants, wanted to go home first, was wet because it was raining, wanted to change his clothes. So we had to backtrack and go home. And then it was like chaos because then then he's too scared to go in the house by himself, too scared to go to the bathroom by himself. It was like meltdown after meltdown after meltdown. And then getting back in the car to finally go grab food. He wanted to use an umbrella and it was sopping wet when we put it in the car. And so I had to put it in the back of the seat on the floor. And then he melted down because he didn't want to get wet because he had just changed his clothes, and the dog's in the back seat. And, and then I lost my shit. I was just like, I yelled, I pounded the steering wheel. I like teed off on him, and and then went into lecture mode. And then I'm like, oh, I felt like bad that I yelled at him, bad that I swore at him.
Yeah.
So there you go. What can we do with that?
Meltdown moment, right? We all have them. We all have them, and it makes sense. And I don't know if this is true about you, but I am very sensitive to noise. So if he was melting down and he was having like a huge screaming sort of a thing, that would have been really difficult for me to handle as well. And it's almost like I'd want to stop the car at that point in time and plug my ears. But we manage it in the way that we do, and that's what you did, and not any good, bad, right or wrong, but just an understanding of that's what happens when we reach our limit. I mean, don't you guys agree?
Totally. I
Absolutely.
literally, oh my God. Yeah. Oh, and like if they melt down more than, if it's more often than not, sometimes you reach your base limit, like your max limit much quicker. And I think I even said like halfway to Culver's was like, I almost stopped 2 times to turn this car around, but I didn't do it. Now I'm like basically my mom.
Well, I was thinking that like then we
car.
have that thought of we're our moms, and it's like, oh, I don't want to be like this, and so we come down extra hard on ourselves. But so what we
Totally.
need to do is the opposite. Really, we do need to have some compassion for ourselves when that happens, and we don't handle chaos as well as we intended to handle chaos.
Yeah.
That is actually the cue in my view of you letting some self-compassion in at that at this moment. I don't know.
Right now, I'm being compassionate towards myself. No, that's true. I did apologize once we got. I said, I think a lot of times too, for me, like when you're in your chaotic moments, even if you're trained in, calming the chaos, or, like you have your moments, like, and we're all like in progress, right? Like I feel like we're all in progress. And I have had a sort of a, like, I don't know, a spiritual awakening, and I've been working on myself in different ways, to heal myself from within, and, that kind of stuff, in order to be a better mom for my kids. And like, you have your shit ass moments where like, you just can't handle the chaos anymore. And you're spent. And sometimes it comes out of nowhere, like today, where I was just like, and then sometimes you already know it's coming. And when it happens, you're like, but it's what you do afterwards. So I did apologize, and I gave him a hug, and we had like sort of like an understanding of, how we both could have done things differently. So like, what do you say to your clients, or what do you say to other people, when they have chaos? Like, what can they do? Like, what are some small little things we could do throughout the day or in moments?
Well, I'm just going to put myself into your situation and just kind of wonder what we call it in therapy is do a chain analysis, and we can look at where the problem behavior came. And if you were to label like the behavior that you didn't want to do, what would that have been, do you think?
Yelling and swearing.
Yeah. Right. Yelling and swearing.
Not to do that.
Yeah. So if we go back to, and we just go back mindfully and do a chain analysis of, okay, so these are the behaviors I wish I hadn't done this time. So next time, what could if I go back through this situation, what could I have done differently? And so what point do you feel like you felt the urge to yell? And when I think yelling and swearing at the same time, right? So that's like, two and one, you got a twofer there, right?
Yeah. I went big, I went big.